Hi, Mamoon. Hello, Ilya. My name is Om. The first time I met the two of you was about almost a dozen years ago. You were starting on your VC journeys, and here we are on the same stage talking about what you're doing, what you're up to at Kleiner and invent and helping build the future of a very storied firm. So before we get started, let's talk about how the two of you got together and came together at Kleiner.
Yeah, we go way back, actually. We go way back. We go actually way back to Frankfurt, Germany, where we grew up together in the 80s and 90s. But yeah, fast forward many decades later, I ended up in Silicon Valley as an engineer in the late 90s during the dot-com bubble, reading a lot about learning a lot from your reporting about the tech industry, and specifically about venture capital as a young engineer. So I ended up eventually getting into venture capital because I realized that as an engineer, you could go to business school and then become a venture capitalist, like venture capitalists of the time. So I got into venture capital in 2005, and my first investment ever was in a company called Box, and we ended up having a nice rivalry with Ilya, and that's how I first got to know about Ilya, because
yeah, so I went to middle school with Mamoon's younger sister in Frankfurt, Germany, and then fast forward many years later, I'm at Dropbox. I'm building Dropbox for business. Box is my arch nemesis, and I hear of Mamoon as this Box guy.
Yeah.
So we kind of had a little bit of like a distanced rivalry, but ultimately really wound up meeting and gelling and working together on the board of Slack.
Yep. Yeah, and so actually the Slack story goes is Ilya was at Dropbox, and I think at some point you wanted to buy Slack while you're at Dropbox.
Multiple times.
Multiple times,
unsuccessfully. Should have done it.
And Stuart's like, there's this guy at Dropbox, Ilya, I love him. He needs to be our chief product officer at Slack, and ultimately you ended up coming to our side.
Yeah, so I wound up leaving Dropbox, going to Index Ventures to help build out the West Coast presence there. Wound up investing in Slack and joining the board and working with an incredible group of people there, and really, on these big boards, because it was really everybody was on the board of Slack essentially. You wind up just meeting a lot of people and really finding people you connect with and see eye to eye on things around running the business, how you speak, how you connect with the founder, when you speak, when you don't speak. And I just always thought, there's just one guy on that board, Mamoon, and he says stuff that makes a lot of sense, and I agree with it. And we kind of see very much eye to eye. That really kicked off a great relationship. We wound up co-investing in Intercom together. Wound up competing on a bunch of deals where he beat me on one of them. That was a little painful. I was like, this guy's he's got something.
Yeah, but I was quite annoyed though, because you were too competitive too quickly as a venture capitalist, and it dawned on me like I need to team up with Ilya. And I think I made an attempt.
Yeah, we went for a walk in Palo Alto. We get together, connect, hang out, talk about just what does kind of an ideal venture capital firm look like if you built it from the ground up? What are some of the kind of core tenets of what we would like to build and espouse? And I think we were walking down the street, and it was by a little park, and Mamoon turned to me. He's like, "Hey, what do you think about joining Social Capital?" And I kind of kept walking. I don't think I even reacted to that.
Deadpan.
Deadpan. I think maybe I was like, "Hey, what do you think about doing Index at some point?" And I think it was kind of a similar deadpan. You came over to Kleiner Perkins in 2017, and Kleiner was obviously an incredible storied firm. I'd heard and sort of really admired it from afar for a very long time. My first foray into venture capital was at Khosla Ventures, where I worked with Vinod, so I got a lot of the history of that from him, and I was quite impressed, and I was like, wow, here's Mamoon who built Social Capital and now went over to Kleiner. There's got to be something really interesting happening over there. And we had this relationship where we really did truly want to work together and had a kind of incredible alignment on what we would want to build if we built a venture firm from the ground up. And so I think I reached out like maybe 2-3 months later, and I was like, what's going on here? What?
Yeah, well, I had this list of like 50 people in venture or outside of venture, and who I'd want to work with at Kleiner as we were building the team there. And quite literally, I still have the Google Doc. It's like Ilya was at the top of the list, and went pretty hard for several months. And was fortunate enough to have you come over, and been working together now for 5+ years. Actually, I think your 5-year anniversary is
my 5-year anniversary is next week.
Yeah.
A few days after my birthday.
So, Mamoon, you left the firm you co-founded, and you, Ilya, left Index. What were the big things you took away from making those moves, which you brought to the Kleiner, the new Kleiner, the things you would do and things you won't do in your new company? I mean, your new partnership?
Yeah, I think as Ilya mentioned, it's Kleiner is a storied firm. Just to take everyone back to when I got to Silicon Valley in 1997, I worked for a company called Xilinx. I was a semiconductor guy, and I had a Sun workstation, running a Netscape browser. Google was just about to come out, buying books on Amazon for grad school. And what's the one common thing across all 5 of those companies? It's that they were Kleiner Perkins Series A's. So in addition to touching and feeling products that were backed by Kleiner Perkins and reading about things that you were writing about, really like in Red Herring and the likes for young engineer who's just getting exposed to the startup ecosystem and what's so great about Silicon Valley was very impressionable. And the one venture capital firm that came back over and over again was Kleiner Perkins. So it's extremely storied for me, and just very deeply impressionable period of time for me. But eventually, get into venture and spent 6 years at USVP, and then left to go start Social Capital. And we were a startup. We had to build a brand from nothing. We had to build systems, process. We had to convince every founder that we were worthy of investing in their company, because we're nobody's, just a new venture capital firm. And I think some of that startup mentality of just having, even startups have a mission and have a set of values, and we had to did some of that at Kleiner in the early days, using software in a more interesting way to identify companies, and just even running the firm in process and systems that are more modern. I think a lot of those things, just what you do for a new company in 2017, 18, 19, we did some of those things when we came in into KP.
I think the big thing is both Social Capital and Index were very much at the time. I think Index was actually done incredibly well, but at the time were challenger firms and had to do some of these novel things in order to compete, because you didn't quite have on the ground the brand of a Kleiner Perkins. And the big deciding moment for me was when we spent a bunch of time together. There was actually a database internally at Kleiner Perkins that tracked all their deal flow, and I looked at it and I was like, wow, they've literally seen every deal I had seen done, but weeks or months before I had. And so the strength of that brand was incredible, truly incredible, generational. And if you could take a kind of a challenger mindset approach in terms of the people, the processes, the approach to pursuing and winning deals and helping companies grow, you could really become number one and number 1, 2.
So, the Kleiner was probably the first ones into, gaming. They were first ones into PC, electronics arts, Compaq, Sun Microsystems, Netscape, Amazon. They've been very early in many of the trends which have become, mega trillion-dollar opportunities. And when you look at last few years before you joined Mamoon in 2017, the firm had been through essentially a lack of clear identity. And when you went in there, what was your thinking? How were you thinking about how do we reinvent this brand, which has been essentially the history of Silicon Valley runs through KP, right? There is hardly anyone in this room who's not being touched by something that KP has found. So how do you actually go about reinventing or building a firm for the future, which has a legacy, which is as old as Silicon Valley now?
Yeah, I think after a bit of introspection, we quickly established that venture capital is best done by a small group of technologists, practitioners, domain experts in areas that we really care deeply about. And we are that first call for a founder who wants to go build an incredible history-making company like the ones that have come before us. And I think we built a team set up to go do that, of people who'd worked in exciting tech companies, less exciting tech companies, but learned from building and shipping product and selling product, and so that you can have that empathy with the people that you're about to go back. And so we built in that last several years, we built a team to support those efforts.
Yeah, I mean, the theme of this talk is Back to the Future, and it was actually the theme of our first fundraising deck for the fund that the new team really put together on the platform. And it's an homage to that introspection and understanding that these great outcomes, Amazon, Google, Netscape, Intuit, Juniper, Genentech, the list really truly goes on, were all the outcome of a really small group of investors who could sit around one table, debate, have conviction, challenge conviction, reinforce conviction, and be truly great partners to each other. And in a sense, I think the sort of the core tenet of our view, even in the conversations we had before coming over to KP, was that ventures probably doesn't scale, actually, or is incredibly hard to scale. And it's an industry where more money begets more scale, but scale doesn't really work. And so you have to keep a discipline, and you have to scale in smart ways. You can scale through capital, you can scale through supporting teams, but that core decisioning engine, the investor group, has to be really tight connected, and ultimately has to love technology for the early stage, right? You have to truly love, understand, believe in technology, because it's not just a financial process. There's a financial outcome, but you're really trying to build the future, which is what Kleiner Perkins was all about in the past.
So who are the other people on the team apart from the two of you?
Yeah, we have great partners. We have Annie Case, Bucky Moore, Josh Coyne, Everett Randall, and we have a new crop, Aditya Lucas, and Sham. So we have a small group, and the way we think about the composition is everybody has majors and minors, right? So our major could be productivity software, Annie's major could be consumer and healthcare, and then we all have minors, right? So my minor might be a little bit of fintech and a little bit of consumer, and that minor overlaps with somebody else's major so that we can be really good partners to each other, and we can have that cohesive conversation. And make a good decision, and then we can actually be supportive to each other's companies in those domains.
So do you guys have, when you say back to the future, does it mean you're back to doing seed rounds and Series A, or, for a while, Kleiner was doing everything?
Yeah, so we have our core fund, KP20, which is our early stage fund, which does anything from seed, Series A, maybe some Bs. And some of this is semantics. There are a number of companies that we back that are just a person and an idea. Is that a pre-seed, a seed, or a Series A? It's all semantics. But we do everything from just complete inception and incubation. And then we have what we call a select fund, and that select fund is mostly to double down into some of our most exciting early stage companies, and then also to do some net new growth investments in companies that we may have missed at the A or B. We may have seen them just whiffed and didn't invest, and then we may do those at a later stage.
So in the past, like Kleiner would go, let's say, on the web, they went with like Netscape, and then it was, before you know it, it was Amazon and Excite and, like At Home, and all the way through the infrastructure layer. So it went very deep on a theme. Yeah. Are you guys going to take that similar approach, or will this be a new kind of approach at your version of Kleiner?
I think we're not probably as thematic or deliberately thematic. I think the themes kind of bubble up over time. I mean, the biggest theme that we probably collectively invest in is sort of the intersection of work and life, and actually the overlap between work and life. The fact that most of us spend most of our time either working or trying to live our lives, but those lines are blurring, right? Whether you're working from home or you need better tooling to do your work so that you can actually go and enjoy your life, and then enjoy your life in novel ways. That's kind of the thematic overarching umbrella. And then within each theme, in the enterprise software side, if you look at obviously AI today, or software infrastructure or data infrastructure, you can go quite deep. But I'd say we probably typically take the approach of having the founder and the team sort of have the conviction, the idea, maybe the contrarian or non-obvious idea that they come in with. But by seeing companies, by having domain expertise, we have what we'd call a prepared mind. And that allows us to very quickly hone in on this. Is this truly novel? Is this truly transformational? Is this truly backable? I'd say that's probably kind of the approach that blends sort of the deep historic, like let's go super far and deep on a vertical, with let the fact that there are 10 times, 100 times more companies being started today by probably 10 to 100 times more entrepreneurs who are more sophisticated, frankly, from the get-go, and let us inform us a little bit on that dimension.
What do you guys think about the whole AI thing with the ChatGPT? It's like the hard, buzzy topic. Is it part of your investment thesis, and like, what do you make of it?
Yeah. Well, I think it's quite the seminal moment for technology to see what's happened from DALL-E to Stable Diffusion and now ChatGPT and just what's OpenAI and some of the other folks are doing. So it truly feels like a seminal moment, maybe akin to the launch of AWS in 2006 or maybe the iPhone and something on that order, where the consumer is now for the first time exposed to the possibilities, the potential of AI. And for us, it's a bit of a continuum. If you look back at our most exciting AI companies, I think they were probably the ones that we backed maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago that are utilizing AI in very meaningful ways to do things that weren't possible before. Whether it's we have an investment in a company called Viz.ai, which we backed about 5 years ago, that looks at CT scans of the brain and finds blockages in the brain and exposes those to a neurosurgeon on call within seconds of seeing that CT scan and getting that patient on the operating table to get stented. And so that's been leveraging AI in a very deep way for more than 5 years now. Or there's, on the other extreme, there's companies like Coda, which is one of our productivity software companies that's now built in GPT-4 so that it can help the knowledge worker. We use Coda sort of at KP to do all of our docs and the like, and to sort of accelerate the, let's say, idea generation or workflows in our day-to-day. And may I get more specific around what kind of workflows, but just like helping us accelerate the kind of things we're doing with the productivity software. And both of us have spent our careers investing and working in productivity software. And what AI really is doing is making us even more productive, making things faster. Things that are mundane and tedious, making those things faster and just saving us time so that, again, back to Ilya's earlier point, so we can go live our lives.
So what do you make of all the hype around the negativity around AI? You guys are not too worried about it?
We're generally, I think whenever there's something foundational, groundbreaking, there's always going to be a cycle of negativity and hype that happened to the great consumer companies, whether it's an Airbnb or an Uber. Obviously, you're seeing that with Meta. With every big transformational change, there's always a fallout. And with AI specifically, there's a significant impact on jobs, productivity, and how people actually live and really work. And so I think that's expected. The long-term impact, I think, is going to be tremendous. And probably what's a little bit different about AI in our view, and reflected in the fact that kind of our best AI companies were founded a little while ago, is that it's almost like the introduction of electricity. Like every business will fundamentally benefit from it and will be able to leverage it, and it'll be net new businesses that are built that have novel interaction models, that have novel uses, direct uses of AI, but it's also going to be traditional businesses that have massive distribution. It's going to be startups that already exist in market that can add to their arsenal of user experience and product on the AI side. So I think it's a tide that really lifts all boats.
I think one of the things which was very common to the earlier phase of these waves was a sense of optimism which was around these technologies, whether it was the Netscape moment, or before that it was the Compaq or EA. Everybody used to get excited about all these new waves which would come. Right now, we go from excitement to fear and confusion very quickly. How do you think about that? Like, it's considering that, as VCs, the profession needs inherent optimism. We need to be, the world to be optimistic to kind of start new companies, right? The young people need to be optimistic, and yet there is a pervasive feeling of negativity around, let's say, AI.
I think we have to be techno-optimists in the jobs we do, and generally, I'm an optimistic person. You know, we're looking for ways to say yes, not no, as investors, venture capitalists, and as a techno-optimist, you're like, you know, looking for hope and reason for new technologies to come about, and like AI, and do good things for the world. Which is why, you know, I do what I do personally, because I derive a lot of enjoyment, fulfillment in the potential of what technology has done over the arc of time in KP specifically, the 50 years that we've been around. You can just track the breadcrumbs of all the companies that we've backed and how that's improved the livelihoods of, you know, billions of people. And so we're definitely a techno-optimist here. And, you know, you can have the other side of the coin here and be not so. Maybe I'll let you take that.
I'm a techno-optimist too, so it's hard for me. But I'd say probably the biggest thing there, is I think it's one, it's fear of the unknown, and probably fear of the thing you haven't yet experienced. And so as these experiences go from, hey, you know, it's a chat GPT type of bot interaction, to actually this thing helped me book my family vacation, or helped me you know, do my work faster, and it's in a product that I already understand. I think that's kind of the knowledge gap that you're bridging. And then the onus is on all of us to, one, keep a moral compass when we invest, right? So invest in companies that are net positive as much as possible. And two, I do think this will be a big dislocation in the jobs market, ultimately, and finding ways to bring folks up the learning curve who might be left a little bit behind.
So can we turn it actually back to you, Om? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, what do you think?
Like, I just think it's software doing software things more than anything else.
But what's the harm to society?
There is definitely harm to society. I think there's unintended consequences of every technology. I don't think we've become very smart about thinking about those things in Silicon Valley, right? Like, we've not learned from examples like Facebook or, you know, some of the other companies which have done, you know, they may have started as optimistic, idealistic businesses, but at no point did the founders or the management consider that things could actually go wrong and they could be used for nefarious purposes, right? Like, I wrote a piece today saying that atomic energy can destroy, and it can also create, you know, plentiful energy for us to live forever. And so we just need, as humans, we are fallible, not the technology. And I think so that's where I come out at. I think it's the job of technology industry to do a better job of policing itself. And I think the less we do that, the more we let other people define the destiny of a technology. And so that's where I'm at. But let's talk about, given that it's only 30 seconds, I know one of your biggest exits in recent times has been Adobe and Figma. Can you give us a little update on that?
Yeah, no, Figma, what an amazing company and ride it's been. Also using a lot of AI inside of the tool. Yeah, no, it's an exciting time for Figma and what's to come.
Yeah, the AI inside you, Mamoon, doesn't allow you to give me the answer I want.
We're all optimistic. We're all hopefully optimistic.
We're optimistic.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.